In spite of the bumps and bruises over the past 5 seasons, Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers have run the ACC for the better part of the past decade. The foundation for Swinney's run of success at Clemson started in the early 2010s when he was just settling in as coach and began recruiting at a high level. Blue-chip players like Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, Tajh Boyd, and eventually Deshaun Watson, Mike Williams, and more committed to the Tigers instead of FSU, Miami, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and others. Those players and others ended a 35-year national championship drought at Clemson and gave the Tigers 2 titles in a span of 3 years, as well as 6 consecutive ACC championships. In the nil and transfer portal era, it's a run that feels difficult for any school to replicate, whether in the ACC or elsewhere. Clemson has unquestionably slipped amid the nil and transfer portal landscape, no longer the best team in its own conference from year to year or even its own state in 2 of the past 4. But as for any one team that's dethroned the Tigers from its perch atop the ACC, that's a bit tricky. Only one current conference coach has a winning record against Swinney. Here's a look at how every coach in the ACC has fared against Clemson ahead of the 2026 college football season. Current job, 2013 present. Record versus Clemson, 2-9. The second longest tenured coach in the ACC has won 2 of the past 3 meetings against Clemson, including a 24-17 victory on October 28, 2023 in Raleigh. 2 nights later, Tyler from Spartanburg became a household name in college football circles. Current job, 2015 present. Record versus Clemson, 2-3. Narduzzi's Panthers pulled one of the biggest upsets in 2016 when they came into Death Valley and handed the Tigers their first and only loss of a national championship season. Most recently, Clemson used a late 50-yard touchdown run from Cade Klubnik to escape with a 24-20 win at Pitt on November 16, 2024 to keep the Tigers' ACC title and ultimately their college football playoff hopes alive. Current job, 2020 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-4. Next meeting, October 30, 2026 at Doak Campbell Stadium. Clemson's only loss to Florida State since Jameis Winston was the Seminoles' starting quarterback in 2014 came 3 years ago, when FSU appeared to be back amid a 12-0 regular season and an ACC championship. It's been all downhill in Tallahassee for Norvell since, and he enters 2026 on the hottest of hot seats. Current job, 2022 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-1. Next meeting, October 3, 2026 at Clemson Memorial Stadium. Cristobal, who passed Swinney on USA Today Sports' annual summer rankings of the best ACC football head coaches, dropped his first game against the Tigers in November 2022 at Memorial Stadium with a 40-10 blowout loss. The Hurricanes used double overtime to get past Clemson, 28-20, at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami a year later. Swinney and Cristobal will meet for the 3rd time as coaches this fall. Current job, 2022 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-1. Clemson's 24-21 loss to Georgia Tech last season on a game-winning 55-yard Aiden Bear field goal dropped the Tigers to 1-2 and more or less ended their preseason hopes of contending for a national championship by Week 3. Current job, 2022 present. Record versus Clemson, 0-1. The former Clemson offensive coordinator was on the receiving end of a 48-31 loss to his former boss in the only head-to-head meeting between the two on October 19, 2024. Current job, 2022 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-1. Lashley has turned SMU into an ACC contender in the school's first 2 seasons in the conference. The Mustangs made the college football playoff in 2024, even with a loss to Swinney's Tigers on Nolan Hauser's 56-yard field goal, as time expired in that year's ACC title game. SMU avenged the loss with a 35-24 win at Memorial Stadium last October, behind quarterback Kevin Jennings, 290 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Current job, 2023 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-1. Until last year's upset win at Miami, Brohm's biggest victory as Louisville's coach was arguably the Cardinals' 33-21 win at Memorial Stadium on the first November Saturday night in 2024. Clemson avenged that year's loss with a thrilling though low stakes, 20-19 win last November. Current job, 2024 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-1. Next meeting, November 20th, 2026 at Wallace Wade Stadium. Diaz went 0-1 against Clemson during his 3-year stint at Miami from 2019 to 21. After returning to the sidelines as a head coach in 2024, he led Duke to its first win in Death Valley since 1980 with the Blue Devils' 46-45 victory on November 1st, 2025. Current job, 2024 present. Record versus Clemson, 0-1. Dabo 1, O'Brien 0. After a respectable first season at Boston College that saw the Eagles finish 7-5 and reach a bowl game, the team sputtered to a 2-10 record and a last-place finish in the ACC last season. One of those double-digit losses came at Alumni Stadium on October 11th. Cade Klubnik threw for 290 yards and a touchdown and rushed for one more in a 41-10 Clemson win. Current job, 2024 present. Record versus Clemson, 1-0. Next meeting, November 7th, 2026 at JMA Wireless Dome. Clemson's most inexplicable loss during its 7-5 campaign a year ago came against a Syracuse team that would fall apart completely after a 34-21 beatdown of the Tigers on September 20th in Death Valley. The injury to quarterback Steve Angeli didn't help the Orange, but Angeli or not, it was one of the most inexcusable performances by a Swinney-coached team during his Clemson tenure. Current job, 2025 present. Record versus Clemson, 0-1. Next meeting, September 19th, 2026 at Clemson Memorial Stadium. For all the preseason hype surrounding the first matchup between Swinney and the NFL legend, it was a complete dud by the time kickoff arrived on October 4th in Chapel Hill. Clemson jumped out to a 28-3 lead in the first quarter and never looked back against the Tar Heels, who would finish 4-8 in Belichick's first season. Lupoy, a former Nick Saban assistant at Alabama who most recently was defensive coordinator on Dan Lanning's staff at Oregon, accepted the California job after the Golden Bears fired Justin Wilcox just shy of 9 full seasons and a career 48-55 cord in Berkeley. Clemson will visit Cal on Friday, September 25th. 2 other ACC coaches Swinney has never faced are second-year Wake Forest coach Jake Dickert and first-year Stanford coach Tavita Pritchard. This article originally appeared on Clemson Wire. Every ACC head coach's career record versus Clemson football.